Charlie tried to play the guitar while suffering from withdrawal. John Locke suggested he go for a walk. Jack was gathering some more belongings in order to finally move into the cave. He doesn't understand why Kate stayed, since even the woman who sent the distress signal 16 years ago has not been rescued. However, Kate believes that rescuers will come for them soon. In the jungle, Charlie heard suspicious noises. Something chased him, and he fled, remembering how he had come to confession. Charlie told the priest about his debauchery, but he made a choice and left the band to serve God. However, his older brother Liam came to see him and told him that they had signed a contract. Now they could be rock stars. In the present, Charlie kept running, and the boar chasing him fell right into John's trap. Charlie demands that he give him his drugs back because he is very sick from withdrawal. John gives him an ultimatum: if Charlie asks him to do it 3 times, he will do it. Saeed, meanwhile, sets up one of the 3 homemade antennas. He may be able to find the source of the signal from the island, but there is a problem: the batteries installed on them are dead. It might only be able to last a minute. When each one reaches the antenna, they will set off fireworks as a signal. But there is a second problem: the battery in the transmitter is also dead, and without it all is in vain. However, Kate knows where to look. She turned to Sawyer with a request, because he was digging under the wreckage and should have found at least the battery from the laptop. Surprisingly, Sawyer agreed to give it to her. Jack and Hugo were dragging things off the beach. Charlie saw the pills and found the tranquilizer. Jack noticed that. He also noticed the nervous demeanor of the guy, who tried to justify himself by saying that he was looking for a headache pill. Charlie recalls how Liam urged him to return to the band, because this is their chance to become famous. After persuasion, Charlie agreed, but on one condition: if something went wrong, they would leave right away. Gene resents the fact that his wife is walking around in a t-shirt and orders her to cover up, but Sun declared that she was hot. Meanwhile, Charlie resents the fact that Jack is not taking him seriously. Jack tries to convince the guy that he is not himself. Suddenly the cave began to collapse. Hugo saw Charlie run out, but Jack was nowhere in sight. Hugo told Charlie to run to the beach for help. In the jungle, Saeed shared with Kate that they should not have survived the plane crash. All the laws of physics are against it. Charlie ran to the beach in a panic and told what had happened. Before running with the others, Boone asked Shannon to turn on the antenna at 5 o'clock sharp. Sawyer promises to tell Kate about what happened to Jack, advising Charlie not to get involved in the whole thing. Charlie recalls how he and Liam and the other guys in the band rocked out at a rock concert. However, Liam did not allow Charlie to perform solo songs, switching all the attention of the public to himself. After the concert, the fans were ecstatic, and Charlie demanded an explanation from his brother. However, Liam only brushed him off, having a good time with pretty girls and illegal substances. Meanwhile, people were trying to get Jack out from under the rubble. Mike, who had worked on the construction site for 8 years, asked everyone to step aside, and then oriented the others as to where to dig so the wall wouldn't collapse. Sawyer found Kate and Saeed, but when Kate started acting rude, he changed his mind about telling her about Jack. Charlie came to John, asking him a second time to give him the substances or throw them away. Then John showed him a silkworm that could be helped out of the cocoon. But if they do, it will be born very weak. The silkworm has to make its own way out of the cocoon. The people, led by Mike, dug a hole in the cave. They heard the voice of Jack, who was pinned down. They need to figure out how to get him out from under the rubble. At this time, Saeed and the others reached their destination. Sawyer volunteered to help and climbed a tree to install the antenna. Before leaving to install the last device, Saeed asked Kate to keep an eye on Sawyer, for he could not be trusted. While everyone was wondering who the skinniest person could get through the tunnel, Charlie came in and declared that he would do it. Sawyer tries to ask Kate why she likes Jack so much. Here he blabs about the accident in the cave. Throwing Sawyer a rocket, Kate immediately runs to the rescue. Charlie climbed into the tunnel with a flashlight, remembering how the fans wouldn't give him a pass. At the time, Liam was in a state of inadequacy. Charlie chased the groupies away, saying that he was leaving the band because they had agreed. Then Liam told his brother that he was nothing without the band. Upset, Charlie took a bag of the substance and cried. In the present tense, he climbed the tunnel, the cave threatening to collapse again, but the guy still managed to get to Jack. Kate, who was very worried, came up. No one knew if Jack was alive, because the tunnel had collapsed again. Everyone started digging again. Charlie started to free Jack from the rubble, but his shoulder was dislocated. Jack explained how to right the joint. Charlie was very frightened, but followed the instructions. He remembered coming to visit Liam in Sydney some time later. Charlie continued to give concerts, but Liam had become a family man and now had a child. Charlie asks Liam to return to the group, but he doesn't want to go back to that life. Charlie blames the brother for his drug addiction. Liam advises Charlie to stay with him and get treatment, but he refuses. In the present, Jack asks how long ago he was off drugs. Charlie finally admits to his addiction, realizing that Jack wants to help him. But given the oxygen consumption, they won't last long here. Suddenly Charlie saw a silkworm and knew what to do. In the meantime, Kate and the others continued to dig. Charlie saw the light and, taking a flashlight, began to act, managing to get himself and Jack to the surface. Everyone was happy. Saeed set off the fireworks, Shannon did the same, and so did Sawyer. Saeed activated the transmitter and looked for a signal, but someone sneaked up behind him and knocked him out with a stick. Sitting by the fire, Charlie continued to suffer from withdrawal, but he was determined to get rid of his addiction. Later he approached John and for the third time asked him to return the substances. Charlie threw it into the fire. John was very proud of him. On the beach, Kate saw the book that Sawyer had found. He was swimming at the time and unashamedly came out of the water without clothes. When he was alone, he remembered having fun with a woman and confessing his love for her. Jess reminded him that he was late for a meeting. Suddenly a lot of money fell out of his suitcase. Jess shouldn't have seen this. In the jungle, Sawyer heard suspicious noises and rushed to run, soon running into Boone, who was rummaging through suitcases. Jack was treating a wound on Saeed's head. Not only did the unknown man hit him, but he also smashed the transmitter. Saeed was going to do everything he could to find the culprit. Suddenly a panicked Shannon brought in the wounded Boone, who had been beaten by Sawyer. Charlie brought Claire some water. He worries that the girl doesn't want to go to the caves and is constantly in the heat, but Claire is still hopeful that they will be rescued soon. Boone explained that Shannon had asthma. They had a supply of inhalers in their luggage. Today, Boone saw Sawyer with his book and decided he had the rest of their stuff, too. If Shannon had an attack, it would be a nightmare. Jack went to Sawyer's and going through his things, demanded inhaler back. Kate intervened, and Jack left with nothing. Sawyer recalls telling his mistress that he supposedly wants to invest in some business, but that he is $160,000 short. According to Sawyer, he had found an investor with whom they would split all the enormous income in half. Jess was interested and suggested that her lover become his investor, for her husband is very rich. Kate promised Jack that she would talk to Sawyer and return the inhalers. She asked him directly what he wanted in return. He replied that he wanted a kiss, but Kate didn't believe him. Kate also hinted that she saw that piece of paper he carries in his pocket and keeps rereading. Sawyer got angry and ordered her to read aloud what it said. A certain James Ford wrote to Sawyer that he was the son of his mistress. After the money scam, the father became angry and took the life of his wife and then himself. Kate realized with horror what kind of man Sawyer was. Meanwhile, Saeed was looking for the culprit. John advised him to pay attention to Sawyer. Though he had an alibi, he could make a fuse out of a cigarette and delay setting off the fireworks. Shannon had a severe asthma attack. Jack kept demanding the inhaler from Sawyer and punched him several times, but he still gave him nothing, remembering how Jess had talked her husband into investing in a dubious business. Of course, her husband was unaware of their love affair. Charlie continued to woo Claire, who really wants peanut butter. Charlie said he would get the butter for her, provided she agreed to go with him to the caves. Shannon was getting worse and worse. Jack helped her as much as he could. Later Saeed said he would return the inhaler himself. He served in the Republican Guard for 5 years and knows how to untie people's tongues. Since they have no other choice, Jack agrees. Charlie tries to find peanut butter and asks Hugo if he has found it. Hugo doesn't like these innuendos. Just because he's fat doesn't mean he's hiding food. Sun walks up to Mike and says in English that she can help Shannon. Meanwhile, Saeed knocks Sawyer out, and he and Jack dragged him into the jungle. Jack gave him one last chance to return the inhalers to them voluntarily. After receiving a firm refusal, Saeed went to work. After a minute of torture, Sawyer surrendered, but will only tell Kate. He recalls telling his criminal companion about his next scam. The deal is due at noon tomorrow. In the present, Sawyer again demanded a kiss from Kate. She had no choice but to comply with the request. Then he admitted that he hadn't originally had the inhalers, and that he'd found the book on the beach. In a fit of anger, Kate hit Sawyer. But Saeed wasn't convinced, so he got into a fight with Sawyer, plunging the blade into him and hitting him right in the artery. While Jack was helping Sawyer, Saeed ran to the camp for tools. Shannon is still in serious condition. Jean sees Mike hand his wife a plant and becomes enraged. Trying to convince Jack to leave him for dead, Sawyer recalls how his mistress and her husband handed him the money. However, Sawyer did not know that the couple had a young son. Upon seeing the boy, Sawyer said the deal was off and simply walked away. He woke up with his arm bandaged. He was very lucky. Jack managed to save him. Kate wonders why Sawyer wants to be hated. She read his letter again and realized that he was the child whose parents had fallen prey to the crook. The perpetrator's name was Sawyer, and James Ford took his name. Despite the trauma of his childhood, as an adult James also became a con man, turning into that same Sawyer. Sun prepared a decoction of the plant for Shinan, and it had a miraculous effect. Jack was very grateful to her. Claire woke up to Charlie packing up her things. He showed her the empty jar that supposedly contained the imaginary peanut butter. The girl couldn't help smiling. Saeed intended to go into the jungle because he felt guilty about what he had done, though he vowed not to do it again. Now Saeed intended to explore the island and make a map. Sawyer wanted to burn letter, but he never did. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel.